think you know everyone, but just by way of introduction, we have John Alcott, who is our managing editor. Julia Perkins is a reporter and will be covering Danbury now and has started already. And Rob Reiser, a Danbury reporter, who worked in for quite a while. John Voorhees, our photographer, and Al Robinson from HatCityBLOG will be videotaping this session. It'll be on YouTube, his site, our site, wherever you want to see it. So, thank you. A few little, not so much ground rules, but just to say that we like for this to be more of a discussion, an informal discussion, not a debate per se, back and forth. But if something is said, the other one would like to respond to, you are free to do that too. We try to have fairly equal time, but there's not a gong or anything going on to go over.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Actually, that's liven it up. It's a little close. And also there's two purposes to this. There most likely will be a news story out of it, but the main purpose is an endorsement. And for that part of the process, the reporters are not involved. And I always say, don't blame them, don't thank them. They won't be involved. Everything is on the record, of course. So let's get started. Typically we have about a 90-second elevator pitch, and this time I'd like to frame it this way. You two ran against each other in 2001. Let's suppose, Chris, if you'd gotten 200 more votes, you would have been mayor. How would Danbury look different today if you had been mayor? Okay.
And this is for the 90-second intro, or?
You could go a little longer because that is a big question.
Okay. Yeah, first let me thank the NewsTimes editorial board for having us here. As far as 2001, if the outcome had been different, I think there are some things that I would have certainly have done differently. I think the changing of the zoning over near Exit 2 and the reserve, I think set in motion a set of events over the last 18 years that now stare us in the face regarding overcrowded schools and overburdened roads. And so, when I was a member and president of the city council, what we had done was to look at that 500 acres, that prime 500 acres of commercial land out there as best suited for commercial development, perhaps even a stadium. And so, at the time, at one point, the Yankees had talked to the city about a AA farm team there that ultimately ended up in Norwich, but that was the kind of development we thought was best for that parcel. So I certainly think that would have been something that would have been different. I also think that my approach to education, it would have been different. What we've had over the last 18 years, I think, is a situation regarding the infrastructure of our schools where we've responded to the overcrowding as opposed to getting out in front of it. And that's why in the campaign I've said that I think it's critically important that we have a strategic plan for the next 20 years so that we don't respond to the overcrowding, and what we do is we get ahead of it. Clearly, there's a report that was sent to the Board of Education early 2019 that showed that there was a projection of 700 new students over 10 years. We had 600 new students this year, 350 of which were unexpected. So I certainly think the planning regarding our school infrastructure would have been different. And I think a collaborative effort regarding including the public would have been necessary in order to, in my view, and it would have been better in order to have a strategic plan for our school infrastructure. School, how we approach school funding, I think, matters too. I've said over and over that I'm an attorney. I advocate and negotiate for a living, and that I would be the chief advocate for our school system in Hartford, that we don't need a lobbyist, that I'll lobby the Democratic governor or Democratic legislature to make our case until it sticks. The most diverse city in the state, and I would be the chief elected official to work with our delegation to make the argument to the decision makers in Hartford why Danbury deserves their fair share. And lastly, I think, regarding, how things would have been different, my politics, I think, are more inclusive. When I've talked about in the last year over this campaign, which has really been tremendous, issues of how to deal with overcrowded schools and overburdened roads and downtown revitalization, I've outlined issues that are strategies that I believe are transparent, that involve people in terms of commissions, decision-making, outreach, and it matters. I can tell you I've been, thankfully, to over 4,000 doors in our city, and over the last year, and I can tell you with confidence that people are excited about what we have to say about these proposals. They want to be part of a commission to determine how best to go forward in terms of drafting a strategic plan for our schools. They want to be involved in seeing a dining and entertainment district downtown. And they want to be involved in infrastructure issues, whether it's traffic, a plan to try to address congestion in the city, or even paving of the roads, which is really, I know it sounds fundamental, it's a big issue with people that live here. So I think in those ways, we would see a different approach in our politics and our policy.
Thank you. Just one detailed question regarding the reserve property back then. Would you have supported a casino?
No. I don't ever. I would never have done that. I mean, back then I know that was something that was discussed, but I have to be honest. I don't know how realistic that ever was. That was the reason that we've heard that the zoning was changed, but the casino. The casino didn't come to fruition, and I haven't seen a line of casino operators the last 18 years, trying to get into Danbury. So no, I would not support a casino.
Mark, you did win.
Yes.
How many years ago now? Back in 2001. In that time, what would you consider a success that has happened that has shaped Danbury, and is there anything you would do differently?
Well, look, I think that first of all, I want to thank you guys for having us in here, and I know you got a lot of these interviews to do over the next couple of weeks, and it's a real testament to you guys being able to do that. So, once again, I'm proud to be here and sitting here as Danbury's mayor. I think that when we look at successes, we look at 18 years of balanced budgets. We look at 18 years of never presenting a budget to our city council or to the public that laid off a single employee. When one fell swoop back in 92 and 93, Chris led the effort to eliminate 52 positions from the school board, and we also laid off 6 firefighters that year as well. That's just a difference that we have between us. So when I've had to, I've been able to ask for and had to ask for a greater contribution of people, but in general, our taxes have been remarkably stable over the last 18 years. In addition to that, you think of 18 years of the strongest economic growth that's anywhere in the state. While 90 people leave Connecticut every day, this city attracts new investment, new people every single day. And they're not coming here because it's a bad place to live. They're coming here because they're voting with their feet. They want to be part of something special. I think we've had 18 years of being one of the safest cities in Connecticut, working closely and collaboratively with our police department and working on community policing. We've had 18 years of some of the lowest unemployment rates in the state, and we recovered the most jobs of any community lost during the Great Recession during 2002-2008. We had 18 years of the highest bond rating in the history of our city. I just left a note sale, and we just sold notes at below 2.4%. One of the lowest I've seen over the years. People want to invest in our city and give us $50 million to upgrade our sanitation plan. We have 18 years of the benefit of working with some of the most diverse people you'll ever meet, and it's what makes this city such a great place. Being the 11th most diverse city is a badge of honor, and I enjoy it every day. Whether I go to a mosque, I go to a temple, I go to Diwali, whatever the issue or event might be, I'm proud to be there supporting the public and taking interest in what the community's doing. We have 18 years of working on a bipartisan basis. I want you to think about this. Look at other communities and how they've evolved into pointing fingers and yelling and screaming at each other. We've had 18 years of people working together. We don't always agree all the time. Although I might add that the Democrats in the city council have voted with my agenda 90% of the time. But at the end of the day, we figure out a way to compromise and get it done. That's because we have a leader, myself, that wants to work together collaboratively, build consensus, make decisions, and move forward. And we've had 18 years of working on some things that are important projects to me, as all of them are, but have really a high priority for me. Things like our homeless outreach, our homeless planning, things like new programming that we're putting together. We absolutely have challenges that we have to address, there's no question about that. But in general, this city is the shining star of Connecticut, and I'm proud to lead.
Move on.
Can I just address a couple things? Yeah. As far as the layoffs in 1992 and 93, I think they're like the casino. They didn't happen. Tony Singe being on the front page of the NewsTimes saying that he's threatening to lay off teachers, it did not take place. It didn't happen, and teachers were not laid off during that time. As far as the Democrats voting with the mayor 90% of the time, I think one of the explanations for that, and it has a lot to do with the council agenda. the city council agenda is made up largely of issues that are voted on by unanimous consent. So I don't doubt that there's some unanimity, because that's the nature of what goes on in the city council. So, you know, that's just a little misleading. And as far as the city's bond rating, the city was AA plus, and it's still AA plus. There's one bond rating agency that rates the city as AAA. The others have the city at AA. The city was AA plus when I was on the council, and it's still AA plus. So I don't doubt that the city has a strong bond rating, but we always did, and we did before the Boughton administration as well.
I just want to say that when the superintendent warns me that a certain action will happen, I take that seriously, and I listen, and I try to craft a policy around that to be able to do that. The reason those layoffs didn't take place, and I worked in the school system at the time, I had to look at teachers in May that were afraid they were going to lose their livelihood, lose their job, because of Chris's vote, because he led the effort to cut the education budget. The reason in the end they didn't lose their jobs is because the state of Connecticut came through with more money later in September. But it doesn't vitiate the fact that he made the vote knowing he was going to lay people off. He also laid off 6 firefighters. And again, in 18 years, I've never laid off one single employee in the city of Danbury due to budgetary concerns. Post 9/11, through 2 recessions, I've been able to make sure that everybody wakes up in the morning and has a job. Now, we've reorganized. We've done early retirements. We've not hired the positions vacant, those kinds of strategies to save money. But in the end, I'm proud of the fact that we've been able to maintain the same level of service, in some cases expand levels of services, things like 311 and the unit, and other programming, new firehouse, new other programs that we offer to our residents. So I think the reality is that if you're going to work collaboratively with the Board of Ed, you got to take direction from the person that leads it.
Okay. We have a lot of topics to cover today, so I'd like to move on to immigration. And Mark, this question will be for you. I know your stance has been, the community knows that you've been following government law, but you know what, it's a federal situation, you say you follow the law. A few years ago, when refugees were coming from Syria, they were in the air and heading to Indiana, and Mike Pence wouldn't accept them, send them away. Dan Malloy did. I'd like to know what you feel about that then, and how you see Danbury as being a city for refugees.
Well, I wasn't sure. I thought Dan Malloy was sort of maybe flip-flopped on that issue. At one point he said he didn't want refugees coming. I could be wrong. But look, at the end of the day, Danbury is a welcoming community. We actually have the largest Muslim community up the I-84 corridor, including Shiite Muslims, the largest concentration in Connecticut. And I'm proud that we have 2 mosques and another mosque that's going to open across the street. So the fact of the matter is that we welcome all people as refugees from anywhere, and we'll do the best we can to accommodate them and to ensure that they get services and the things that they need to assimilate within our community. So I would disagree with the Vice President. I guess he was governor when he did that.
Yeah.
If I were governor, I would welcome them here as well, and we'd make it work.
Are there any circumstances in which you would have Danbury differ from the federal government's stance? Let's say with Dreamers, if that case is lost and they're not given the protection, would you protect them here in Danbury?
Well, you know, to the extent that we could, yeah. I mean, I have concerns that I'd be concerned with the Supreme Court that unwinds policy position by the President about Dreamers in particular, because those individuals gave up their names, social security numbers, their addresses, and now we've got this federal database out there that can be accessed by basically anybody. I don't think that's good. So I'm hoping that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of the President Obama's policy position at that time. I don't see any value at this point in going after kids that are here legally. I don't see any value in harassing people that are here. Look, if you rob a bank and you know, you get 6 drunk driving arrests, then yeah, you probably should be deported. But beyond that, you know, I think we have to continue our reputation as a welcoming community. I have pressed and I've worked closely with federal legislators over the years to have a comprehensive approach to immigration reform, to be able to allow a path to legalization and let people that are here stay here, and to clean up the mess and the backlog of people waiting to get into the country, and to be fair and open about how that process works, because it is a riddle for most people, and it's very, very expensive.
What would you estimate is the undocumented population in Danbury?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I think it ebbs and flows each year, and a lot of it's driven by the economy, what the economy is like back in the country where somebody may be coming from, whether there's war or strife, like in Syria. If I had to guesstimate, I would put probably 7,000 to 8,000. That's a guesstimate.
Hard to know exactly. Chris, what is your position?
I mean, I respect diversity. I've said this in the past. We've had other opportunities to discuss this in other forums. And just yesterday, I was endorsed by the Connecticut Hispanic Democratic Caucus. I was proud to receive their endorsement. And so, I believe that we ought to respect diversity, right? We're one city, and I think that we want to be one community. And so dividing our community along lines of race, ethnic background, any type of division in that way, I just think is completely counterproductive in the best light, unconstitutional in the worst. And so that's why I've said that what I'm not going to do is to ask the police department to target any particular group. And I said this just yesterday. I mean, this is not something the history is well documented, but that's just not something that I would have done. As occurred here, 13 years ago. So in the end, it cost the people of Danbury $400,000. And I understand criminal activity. I'm against crime. The mayor sort of lectured us about how these are criminals, and that's why we have the finest police department in Connecticut to deal with criminal activity. They do a fine job, and I think it doesn't matter the background of the perpetrator. Is my point. Well, no matter their ethnic background or country of origin, if they're involved in criminal activity, then we have a police department to deal with it. But in the end, I think that immigration is a federal issue. We have a fine congresswoman as well, and Johanna Hayes, and I'm sure she'll be involved in the effort to come up with a comprehensive immigration reform bill. But until that happens, I think that we need to be a community that sort of recognizes that we're the most diverse community in the state of Connecticut, that we gain strength from our diversity, and that's something that I respect. And so that's why my politics, you'll often hear me talk about how important inclusion and transparency are, because I think it matters to people, not just immigrant community, to everyone. And so that's why this campaign, I think, has offered a contrast to the past 18 years, that the kinds of policies, ideas, proposals that we've had are inclusive, bring people together. It's exactly what we want to do, of all backgrounds, because it matters to everyone. We're one city.
Well, I just want to say that, look, the mayor does not run federal immigration. The mayor does not order FBI agents, DE agents, or ICE agents to do anything. There's never been a scintilla of evidence to suggest that I ordered ICE to do anything in that particular incident. This was a combined operation between ICE and the Danbury PD. The reason we got drawn into the lawsuit was because our police department assisted the ICE agents in performing their duties. So I just want to be very clear about that over the many, many years. Aside from that, we have to look forward. And if we continually look to the past, you're never going to be able to see the future of Danbury. And the future of Danbury rests on our diversity. It's what we all are about, and it's what this community has been about going back to the turn of the 20th century. So the fact that we can now embrace those that are here, help them assimilate into the community, become new Americans, is something that's worthy, I think, of all of our efforts.
Drilling down a little bit, how do you help people assimilate into the community? How do you make the community feel as one and not, there's different strata here? People who've been here a long time and people who have recently arrived.
Okay, well, a couple of things. One is that we partner with the Multicultural Center to offer something called the Citizens Government Academy. It's something that was created by my office. Gives me a chance to feel like I'm back in the classroom, and recently has been certified by Westcon as well. Just had our class last night. And we bring in people who may not get involved in government and let them learn over 8 nights. Every Monday night we meet. We tour departments, the police station, the fire department. Next Monday night, we're going to the waste treatment plant, the Public Works Department, which, by the way, is the most fascinating plant for everybody to do. They love it. And it's just a way to engage the general public who may never know anything about government, to find out how decisions are made, to talk to department heads, to meet with department heads, to understand what their priorities, how they do their job, and what their job is. And we have a large participation rate amongst a lot of the different groups that have come to Danbury. Remember, we have 50 different languages spoken at our high school. In addition to that, we work hard every day to connect people with immigration services if they need them. through our federal legislators. Each one of them generally has an immigration specialist that we contact and say, you know, somebody's having a hard time getting the paper and the documents right, or somebody's having an issue getting their wife over or husband or whatever the issue might be. When we know that's not something that we simply can manage in our office or have the capacity to do. We've also,
Is that through your constituent services?
yeah, we do that all the time. We also have hosted naturalization and citizenship ceremonies in our library. One year we did one at Terrorwild Park on the 4th of July where 100 people got sworn in as U.S. citizens. So we try to partner with the community as much as we can in a variety of different capacities to educate them about the community, to get them involved, and to get them on board. And by the way, out of the Citizens Government Academy, we've had things like candidates that have decided to run for Board of Education, City Council, because they wanted to get engaged. And they felt it was a worthwhile use of their time. In addition to that, I think the most important thing a mayor can do is to be visible, to be there, to go to the various parties, celebrations, events. And I've done that throughout my entire career. 18 years I've been by the side of the Danburyans, sharing with them their hopes, their joys, their losses, because it's important that we show, that this government shows that we respect every single person in this community.
What would you do, Chris?
Is when you talk about how to assimilate people, I don't doubt that there are governmental programs that exist in order to help people do that, but I believe that you're asking us as candidates for mayor, and so one way to look at what someone's going to do is look at what they've done, right? And so when I think back over my nearly 10 years as an elected official and how we treated people of all backgrounds and how we approached it, we thought it was important to reach out to people. The answer is one at a time, right? To assimilate people by interaction one at a time. And so the way that we did that was to visit people in all sorts of settings, whether it was community celebrations or church events that were in different ethnic communities in the city. And we thought that that was important because we brought government to people, that we didn't require that they come to a public hearing to be heard. What we did was we brought it to them. And so in front of them were their city council members, the mayor, people on the top of the ticket. And I can tell you they appreciated that, people from all backgrounds, that we took time to do those things. And they matter. And I'm spending a minute on it because we're talking about how to assimilate people who are immigrants. But, this is a strategy, that term is just so sort of contrived. It's really an approach that makes a difference to people. And so I think as an elected official, reaching out to people in the various communities of the city is critically important as a representative of people. If you want to represent people, you want to assimilate people, not just immigrants, everyone, into our community, into government, into decision making. This is the way to do it, right? To be an active participant. And so I think that's important. And it's certainly important for the immigrant community, but I think it's important for everyone because it makes a difference. And so that's why in this campaign I've started in the spring. There was still snow on the ground, snowing the first day I went walking door to door because I wanted to reach out to people one at a time and to hear what they had to say. And it's been, I have to be honest, one of the highlights of my life to have done that. This campaign, the last year, it's been tremendously exhilarating. The responses from people has just been, I can't tell you. I could write a book about it, and it's really been a highlight for me. And people want to be involved. I can represent to you, as the Democratic candidate for mayor, that people want to be involved. I've heard them, I've heard what they have to say, and I do think that the personal interaction with people throughout the city is critically important.
At the last debate, that is Chamber of Commerce today, we did touch on education as one of the key issues for the city, for any city. And let's talk about some solutions. We'll begin with you, Chris.
Sure.
Some people are saying that the new charter school should get approved, and that would help alleviate the overcrowding in the schools.
Right.
What is your position and what's your solution?
On the
The
overall,
charter school.
on the charter school specifically, I can tell you that my concern about charter schools is that I believe, right, it's a private entity. And so I think that we need to use public money for public schools, and I'll just explain why that is, right? Charter school does not have oversight by the Board of Education, and I think that's problematic. that we need to have oversight of all of our schools through the Board of Education, because the Board of Education is elected by the voters and responsible to the people of the city, not some for-profit entity. Further, if you've got a charter school that is funded by, in this case, in large part by the state, if that funding dries up, or if for some reason the entity itself isn't able to continue to perform, then the people of the city are going to have to fund that school. Otherwise, we're going to have a crisis, right? And so that, I think, is a huge risk. And so in the end, what I've proposed, and I hope it's okay to segue into my solution for the crowd, what I've proposed is that we have a strategic plan. I don't think there's been a plan. I've heard the mayor say we have a long-range plan and a short-range plan. If we have all these plans, I don't think we'd be in the situation that we're in. And so what I think is that we need a strategic plan that's made up of parents, teachers, administrators, and facilities experts, so that we have a plan, not for 1 year, for 20 years. What I'm saying is that, you know, we want to make sure that we're spending our money wisely, because these are bond issues, significant bond issues. So we've had $50 million bonds, $20 million bonds. When you look at all the money we've spent over the last 10 years, we could have built a school. And I'm not saying we need to build another school. What I'm saying is we want to make sure that we don't, right? We want to make sure that when those decisions are made, that we're bringing these bond issues to the voters, that we're doing it in the best way possible, because we have an awful lot of additions that were built the last number of years. And now if we find that that's not adequate, now we're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and we spend an awful lot of money retrofitting these schools. So I think a strategic plan is important. As important as the plan is the process. I've said this for the last half an hour here, that I think that people want an open process. They want to be part of the decision making. And I can't tell you, I've been to doors where parents have invited me in, and they've said, I've heard this proposal of yours to have a commission so that we can have a strategic plan for the schools. I want to be on it. And I'm telling you that in candor. You know, I say this as the Democratic candidate for mayor. And you know, it's been a tremendous experience. People are excited about it. So I definitely think that we need a plan, because what we have in front of us now are, you know, a situation where 350 students showed up to the school system unanticipated, and a $1.3 million shortfall. And you know, this is a real problem. You know, moreover, when it comes to funding in the schools, you know, we're last in per pupil expenditure, and I can't say that's a positive attribute. Realtors have said it's not helpful for economic development. Parents have told me they're concerned about it and thinking about moving out, and that's why I'm saying I think it's important that we advocate with our legislative delegation to the governor and the legislature, and I've already spoken to them. I can represent to you the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, and they know that's what we're seeking, right? That if the voters are kind enough to elect me, I'm going to be someone who uses my legal background as an advocate and as a negotiator to go and press for the funding that we need for our school system. You know, I just think that it's critically important. It's an economic development issue, a quality of life issue, and I can represent to you with candor and confidence. People of the city agree with me that this is a huge issue for the city of Danbury going forward. The mayor's 2020 task force, you know, just met the other day for the first time in years. I'm saying to you, we need a plan that's reliable, that we can use going forward, and the people of the city, I think, feel confident that that's going to serve us well.
Thank you. Mark, what is your solution? Is the charter school part of it?
Well, I think the charter school is an interesting concept, but it's got to get funded, right? They've got a charter, but they don't have the funding. If you look at the funding mechanism, it's a win for the city. Each student is funded at $12,000. Right now we get about $3,500 per kid if we use an additional ECS route. So it pretty much pays for itself. There's a benefactor that wants to fund the balance, the delta that exists between funding the seats and the operating of the school. And you'll be able to house 600 kids. You don't have a problem at that point. But the reality is it doesn't have it funded. But I will tell you this, if they decide to open up another school, rather than send that money to Waterbury, New Haven, Stanford, Norwalk, or Hartford, it ought to come to Danbury. And I'm not going to walk away from $12,000 per kid, because I wouldn't be doing my job as mayor of the city and ignoring their needs. But having said that, there's no money available for that, so we've got to figure this out for ourselves. We have spent, since 2002, almost 2 decades planning for these incremental increases in our students. Our 2020 vision plan has worked because we've absorbed about 2,000 students without a major upheaval or major overhaul. Yes, we've added additions. Yes, we've added temporary classrooms. But all that is part of a much broader plan based on what the demographic studies say. Chris advocates for a 20-year plan. The problem with the 20-year plan is that the demographic studies are only good for 3 to 5 years. We spent the Board of Ed spent $25,000 on a demographer last year that said you're only going to get 1% more kids this year, and we got 350. The year before that, we were actually down on students. So you can't predict human behavior, you can't predict how people move through, and you've got to be able to look at birth rates, housing starts, and be able to come up with a formula that'll work. So really, I look at it as two things. There's a short-term plan to be able to accommodate over the next, say, 4 to 5 years, things that we need to do. One is we ought to take back the magnet school. I've already spoken to the state. The magnet school is almost 20 years old now. We ought to make it what's called an intra-district magnet school, which means that students, parents would still apply for it, but they would only apply from Danbury. That's 140 seats that we would open up, or roughly 6 or 7 classrooms. That alone will be able to handle a lot of what we would see at the elementary level. The other issue is we ought to have a pre-K center. If we open up a pre-K center, we can free up 6 classrooms and the rest of the balance of the elementary school. So now we've got about 12 classrooms that have been opened up to accommodate any overflow at the elementary level. But what we have seen here, which was surprising, is an increase in students in grades 7 through 12. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is a large inflow of students from other places. By the way, Norwalk is seeing the same problem, and they're wrestling with the same issue. The second one is that the State Board of Ed has changed some of their policies as it relates to 19-year-olds. Where before we used to refer them to adult ed, we're now required to send them to the high school. So remember, the high school is based on credits, it's not based on age. You get so many credits, you move to the next level. It's really hard for a 19-year-old who has no credits walking in the door to be able to get a diploma by age 21. But it's a requirement. So that's put pressure on the high school as well. So what we need to do there in the short term is to be able to free up space at adult ed, move them to a new location. That frees up other programming that we have there that will provide a siphon, if you will, for students that might be able to utilize. We also should embrace other communities, in particular those communities that are looking to sell buildings because they're reducing the amount of students that are going there. And if we have to, purchase a building, or lease a building, but it would be a Danbury school, right?
You mean the same Bridgewater?
Well, I don't know about Bridgewater. I know the Burnham School has been looking for students. That's a little bit of a travel, but for example, Brookfield has a center school that they're going to close down. And they're talking about making a library, and they've got a committee and all kinds of things. There's 20 classrooms in that building with a gym and a cafeteria. We could set up a special school in terms of for Danbury students on that side of the city, carve it into our districting, but it would be a Danbury school, staffed with Danbury teachers that would serve Danbury students. And we would pay for it. And by doing that, we would save a significant amount of money just building a whole other school. So there are a lot of ideas out there, and part of our vision, and it's not year 2020, it's vision 2020, right? I didn't want to make it 2030 because people say we're nearsighted, or 2030, we'd be farsighted. So it's vision 2020, is seeing into the future as far as we can, and being able to provide enough space so every child has access to a quality education. So we're working on that now. We did have a meeting, we have another one scheduled for November 6th, and we'll have a plan. And my goal is to have something on for referendum up in March of next year. That's a presidential preference primary, and I think it would be appropriate to have something on the ballot. It's very aggressive, but I think we can do that. And we do include and invite parents to participate. We've got PTO members on this commission, we've got interested public on this commission, we've got the superintendent, we've got me, we've got union members. Pretty much all the stakeholders are involved in this commission, and these are public meetings with agendas and minutes, and actually have been filmed as well. And we encourage people to become involved and engaged, and we want them to be part of the solution.
Mark, something on the agenda by March, something being a proposition to build.
Yeah.
Approximately how many classrooms? I mean.
Well, that's what we're vetting out right now. So our second meeting in November will be with the demographer, who will talk a little bit about why she undercut or undershot her numbers in terms of the students that arrived, so we can get a briefing and understand how we got here versus kind of flying blind on that. The other thing is that I want to have this done in March because June 30th, the legislature, you have to have your building projects in by June 30th, or you have to wait the following year to hit the bond commission. So I'd rather get this done earlier than wait for the November elections next year, so that we are able to have our plan out there, get approved by the legislature in the May session, and then go ahead and execute our plan, whether it be leasing, borrowing. I know we'll have to pay off the magnet school. That's about $500,000-$600,000 because they depreciate it over 18 years, and be able to open up those seats. All that stuff I need approved by the voters, and I'd like to do it in March if possible.
I just need to address to a couple things. As far as the fact that there is a 2020 task force, I mean, to the extent that there was a task force, there's certainly not a plan, because we see that the crowding is excessive. I mean, when the freshman academy opened at the high school, it was already too small. I mean, the crowding is significant, and so I just think this is an issue of urgency that requires, more immediate attention. Calling a committee together that hasn't met in a period of years just doesn't show that this issue is getting the kind of attention it requires. And I can tell you that the people of the city are aware, especially parents of students, especially at Danbury High School, and students themselves film themselves. They couldn't get from one class to the other, and they get a lot of time. I mean, come on. So, they're asking for our help as elected officials and people, that are leaders in the city. So I think that it's an issue of urgency. As far as demography goes, yes, I think that demography is going to be important, because we have to extrapolate over time how many students. But when I say we need a long-range plan, what I'm saying is that it's going to be a living plan, right? This isn't something that we're going to put on the shelf. We're certainly going to use it every year because it's critical. I mean, we've got growth in the city, and I think that, if we have that kind of growth in Danbury, if we have we see those kinds of increases, then we're going to have to do a better job, right? I mean, at some point, you have to meet expectations. We can't just, say that, well, we'll do the best we can, and if we're off by, 600 students, it's okay. I mean, it's not. And so I just think, the people of the city understand that this is necessary and it's important, and so do I. So, I think this is a living plan that we would adjust, each year so that it worked for our needs. And if we had to revise it, then we would, right? But, it's something that I think is necessary. As far as busing students to another city, I mean, I can't say that that's the best idea in my view. I mean, I would find a way. If we have an urgent need for space in the city of Danbury, I'm going to look for space here. So whether it's schools that exist here, space downtown, or otherwise, okay. I mean, there's historically been a Main Street school here. I mean, I would find a way to provide the space that we need for the school system on an exigent basis. That's why I believe that this issue of funding the $1.3 million shortfall should have already been brought to the council, the city council. I mean, that's who's going to appropriate the funding. And so, so that there would be a council committee, perhaps a leadership committee, looking at this, because this is an issue of critical importance. And so, I think we've got to just take it as seriously as the people of the city do, and these are, some of the ways that I would take steps to address it.
I would just want to say that that's exactly what we did over the last 18 years. We have a living plan that started in 2002, and we've had to make adjustments as the city grows. Sometimes it doesn't grow as fast. Sometimes it grows quicker than you think. That's why we expanded 3 elementary schools. That's why we created a new middle school. That's why we added the freshman academy. All that was work product over a period of 10 years out of the 2020 committee, because things do change and you can't predict. It's a very hard business to predict more than 3 or 4 years out, and so we've always left this as a growing living plan to be constantly amended and updated, and that's why we're meeting again, to continually amend it and make strategic decisions for the community as well with their participation. I also want to be very clear, I'm not advocating busing kids out of Danbury. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if there is a building that is used and is being mothballed in the surrounding community, then we ought to look at that. And this would only be by parent. The parent would only be able to choose that they would want to do that. This would be through and through a Danbury school. Or maybe we just move a special program there. Maybe we move all of pre-K there and fill up those 20 classrooms that we have with our pre-K programming. And then leave the rest of our buildings K through 12. But I'm certainly not advocating busing students all around Connecticut.
I want to give reporters a chance. Rob, do you have a question?
Good.
Just to follow up on the center school, if you were to move students there, would you make upgrades to that building? Because I know that was one of the reasons that they're vacating the schools because of the issues there. A lot of it was related to not having enough space and things like that, but there were other issues, none of which I can remember at the moment, but of course.
I just want to be clear, I'm just throwing that out as sort of an example. How we have, the building is actually pretty good shape, but, Brookfield's vision is to upgrade Huckleberry, to knock it down and to build a much bigger facility and to consolidate their elementary schools into one elementary school, which makes a lot of sense. It'll be a lot cheaper, more state-of-the-art. And look, at the end of the day, the 2020 committee may decide to knock down one of our elementary schools and go bigger. And that may be one other way in which to generate that. What we're seeing now in this recent spur of students is that it's really grade 7 through 12 that we're seeing this influx. That our lower numbers are fairly stable in terms of students coming in here. So that's really where our issue is going to be. That's why we've got to get on the, I wanted this thing out in front of the voters in March because I don't want to wait a year for a commission to do work. It is an urgent issue that needs to be addressed, and I want to make sure over the next several years that if 300 more kids show up next year, we're ready to go and we got space for every child.
And all I would I know you want to move it along. All I can say is that, I just think there are some decisions that have been made that maybe, would have been better to have not occurred over the last 18 years. And one of them was there's 13 acres up at the reserve that were sold that the city owned, and things like this, right? I mean, we start with fundamental issues. We're trying to have a campaign based on things that matter, fundamental things, local government you expect them to do, kitchen table issues, right? That's what we've been about. This issue too, particularly. And so what I'm saying is when we talk about where's the space, well, what city-owned land do we have? What's the inventory? Where can we put a school? I mean, if that was something we had to do, even additions, is there space? And so these are sort of, first steps, right? Threshold issues. And so, when we look at the inventory of city property for a school, or, where we would put one, if that was even an issue, right? If that was what we needed, where would we put it? And so what I'm saying is that, the fact that we sold 13 acres on the west side probably wasn't the best idea, right? Because that's space that we could have used to build a school, and it's just indicative of kind of lack of planning.
I would just say we certainly can buy back that we don't have to build a school building on land we own. If you're going to go out and borrow $65 million for a new elementary school, then a couple $1 million for land is just especially when it's reimbursed at 63.2%, it's just a drop in the bucket. So I want to think out of the box. I don't want to think just of city-owned land. I want to look at the city entirely and make sure that it fits exactly the way it should. We've already done an engineering analysis of all of our elementary schools. That work's already been done by Malone and McBroom and our consultants. And so that's some of the information that we're going to be presenting to the committee after the demographer presents her information about how we got here. I think it's important to know how we got here, to be able to make decisions about what to do in the future.
As a longtime area resident, I delivered the Danbury NewsTimes in 1962 as a newspaper boy, just like the.
So did I. I built an empire.
In any case, the city has changed a lot, obviously, and I'm particularly interested in what's going on the west side. I mean, when you drive off 84 up Ridgebury Road and you look at it's like a city on the hill up there now. It's pretty vast. And then you start to think, oh gosh, okay, so they're opening up the Mayoral line, or they'd like to do that. Is that the name of it, the
Mayoral line?
Yeah. To southeast to get, obviously, some of those folks, I'm sure, on the train lines over to there, then down to Manhattan. And then, you look at, some of the other changes going on over there. It just seems like it is growing apace. And the other thing, the sewering along Route 6, right? That's going to open up a commercial area, I would guess, on both sides of the border. I know you're working with Putnam County now to do that. So what is the overall vision for that part of the city? It's becoming a metropolis of its own almost.
Is that to me or to?
Well, yeah.
Okay, I'll start. I mean, look, you have to understand the history of that. In fact, this paper supported that development there. The Chamber of Commerce supported that development there because at the context of those times. If it wasn't for the work of Dick Blumenthal and Nancy Johnson, the Scottico Tribal Nation very well may have purchased that property and may have had a casino. And those negotiations were much more farther along than people realize in terms of making a purchase. Remember, you had an individual who was an entrepreneur that had $1 billion at his disposal to go out and purchase pretty much anything, and when you think the property sold for $26 million, it could do that. But also understand that of the 585 acres, about 250 are undeveloped. They're open space, never to be developed with easements and conservation easements across that, including a wildlife corridor. So while it looks intensive from the road, it's really not, but it really can be a growth magnet for Danbury. The Mayoral line, by the way, will never stop there. It's not possible to be able to have a train station out there. The vision would be that people would drive downtown, park at the railroad station, or people in this area, instead of driving and going to Stanford and hooking over, would go to Southeast or directly into Grand Central. I really see this as a big driver of growth in the Main Street corridor more than we'd see on the west side. It's just not, again, practical to set up a train station there. I'd also say, there's been discussion about, first of all, you have to understand too, people are paying between $600,000 and $800,000 for a home out there. They're paying millions of dollars in taxes. In addition to that, they gave the city a $12 million payment as a concession fee at the very beginning, which we still have in our savings account, as a way to recognize that there is work to do in infrastructure and things like that as that comes up. On top of that, Governor Rao also authorized a widening of I-84, a preliminary widening from exits 1 to 2, but there's a much bigger program out there to widen exits 1 through 11, and I've spoken with Governor Lamont. He understands that it's a bottleneck, just like exit 25 in Waterbury, you can't get through there. Now you can. There'll be a similar kind of widening project there, and they've had public hearings, they've got a great website, they've got a great Twitter feed and all that stuff. Their design team is doing a really good job of that. So we see this as definitely a growth area, and we also have a major corporate presence there, and we want to enhance that as well and continue to do that as well. And then also, there's a 55 and older development in there, and there's been discussion about, well, geez, this is generating all these kids for our schools, and that's just simply not true. I did a heat map. I used this the other night at the Board of Education discussion. This is a heat map of Rivington. There's not a single new student that comes out of Rivington this year, not one. I pulled every single address of every single new student and created a thumbtack for every student that came here, and not one of them came from Rivington. Why? Because most of those people, if you look at the buyer profile, $600,000, $800,000 purchase of a condo. Most of them are 6-month residents. They go down to Florida for the rest, and they are spending the money and driving that restaurant growth out on the west side. It's a good thing. We ought to embrace it. And with the help from the state, we'll be able to do that. And then finally, as you mentioned, we don't necessarily, we're not at a deal yet with Boughton County in terms of connecting them into SOAR, although we're going to need ratepayers. We've got a major upgrade that's taking place there, and that's going to have to be something that gets negotiated out, and it may never get negotiated out. I'm not really sure exactly where that'll be, but they have, requested that they be able to do that. Having said that, they already have approvals from New York State Watershed Authority to do septic systems out there. So even if they don't get our SOAR, they can build whatever they want out along the Route 6 corridor. So either way, you're going to get some construction out there. But we do work with them and talk with them and try to collaborate with them. And it's been a solid strategic partnership. They kicked in $200,000 for this train study because they don't want to go out and build a $20 million parking deck because 70% of the residents out there from Connecticut that park in Southeast.
So yeah, let's start from the beginning. It's a great question about vision for the west side and the development in the city. And so, I think the casino issue was a red herring, right? In the end, what happened was you had developers that built thousands of units of condominiums on the west side, okay, and there wasn't any vision for what was going to result from that over a period of time, right? But there are thousands of units. And so, the mayor said that there was a plan for the west side development. So this wasn't new news, right? These condos didn't just spring up. The city had to approve the site plans. They had to approve the change in the zone. So this was planned. So we'll start there, right? That we knew there was going to be thousands of units of condos there. And so what happened was there was no impact fee or other concession from the developers for things like roads and schools and public safety. And so what we have is, 18 years of growth without a plan, and now we see what results from that. And so what I'm saying is that it impacts our quality of life. That the decision was made then and along the way, right? These condos didn't get built in 1 year. And so the decision was made that the grand list growth, some quick grand list growth, was more important than maintaining our quality of life, because that's exactly what happened, because there wasn't a plan. And so what I'm saying is that the horse is out of the barn there, right? So now it's a matter of how do we manage that growth, because that 500 acres is now not available for other types of use. We have the use that we have. So all I'm saying is that I think that west side development is something that is far along, and even now there's a proposal for the Matrix building for even more units. And so here we are, we still don't have a plan for the schools. And so all I'm trying to say is, we want to be a welcoming community. I completely understand that. We want to have growth. I understand that. I just think that we want to have a plan to manage the growth, and we need foresightful leaders that have a plan together, that have an idea about how we're gonna get from point A to point B and not just kick the can down the road. That's what I think, as far as that's concerned. As far as the Maybrook line, look, there are many people in our city that commute both for their job and people that wanna go for pleasure to New York City. My wife is one of them. My wife works for the Shiseido Corporation. She's a corporate paralegal, and she takes the 5:52 train every morning out of Southeast to New York City. And so, you know, I know something about the life of people that have to commute, right? My wife is one of them. And it's, yeah, I know, right? And you know, she's terrific, and she's a trooper about it. But she takes the train out of Southeast, so I know what these folks go through, and I understand why they want a better experience, because it's rough. You spend most of your day commuting one way or the other, and it's one of the biggest stresses of your day. So I understand. That's why I spoke in favor of the study, the feasibility study, when it was on the council agenda. I think it was a good idea. We want to see how feasible it is. The Maybrook line, you know, it's a tremendous idea, and we talked about it during the Iroquois administration. The problem is feasibility. How feasible will it be? Has technology changed or attitudes changed since then to maybe make it more feasible? Hopefully it has, and if it has, I'm all for it. But I just think we've got to see what the cost is when you've got the state DOT saying it's, you know, between $50 and $100 million just to get to Southeast. Is that going to be feasible? You know, but we talk about sort of where are the students coming from in the West Side development and what impact that has on our facilities, our infrastructure, school infrastructure. I can tell you that the report that was issued to the Board of Education at the beginning of the year says that the largest contributor of students, or the area where they're most likely to come from, is West Side development. I mean, I've seen the report. So, you know, the fact that Rivington this year either may or may not have been a student, that I can't speak to, but I can tell you that as recently as January 2019, it was thought that the bulk of the new students were going to come from the West Side, which makes the fact that we had 350 unexpected students even more sort of, you know, unexplainable, because the report came out less than a year before, and it alerted everyone to the fact there's going to be an increase in students. So, you know, I do believe that that's the case, that you know, we've got to have a better handle on how we're going to deal with the infrastructure needs of our city going forward. In my speeches, I've said things like, Danbury's at a crossroads, and we need a new plan, a new vision, a new way, because our city has changed. Our city has changed, as Mr. Alcott said. I completely agree with him. And so we need a new politics to fit our new reality. And so that's what we're offering the people of the city. More vision and consequences, right? We know that it's important that we get things done, not just talk about them. We're not going to kick the can down the road. We're going to actually implement these things.
I would just want to say that, first of all, there was a concession fee. It was $12 million. And you simply go back and look at the clippings, and you'll see that there's a check given to us by WCI for $12 million. And we still have it today. That development up there is a planned neighborhood development. It's a plan. It's a mixed use of retail, housing, there's a gym there, everything that's going on. Chris voted for the sewer and water for that planned neighborhood development, not for industrial use. He was on the council when that got approved, and he supported it. And it was a good move to do that, because it's driven growth for our city. Now, the demographers have been wrong about everything. And they were wrong about where the students are being generated, because they're not coming from Rivington. So you can keep repeating it to try to demonize the people who spent almost $1 million in a home out there, or you can just look at what the facts are, and the facts are that's not where they came from. In fact, if you look at the other piece of the study, this is where all the students came from. Having said that, we as a community have a responsibility and a duty and a moral responsibility, I believe, to educate every child that shows up to our door looking for an education. So I don't quarrel with that. But based on what the study that was done by Malone McBroom, which was our demographer, she predicted about a 1% to 1.5% increase in enrollment this year. She did that 2 years ago. We had a zero. We actually lost students 2 years ago. So these things are not, human behavior is very difficult to predict and put there. And saying that you got to get a plan, it's not a plan. It's just saying you got to have a plan. We have a plan. It's called the Plan of Comprehensive Development for the City. Sharon Kalicha has done a wonderful job on there. When Chris was on the council, I had to go to the legislature, pass a law, because the city had not done the plan of development in 20 years. So in 2001, they finally relented and got the plan done, and mainly because they're expensive. Plans of development will cost you north of $1 million if you do it right and get community input. We are currently in the process of updating this plan of development that was last drafted in 2012. So we look at this continually. and we will continue to make adjustments to that. We also have a transportation plan, of which the multimodal center here downtown, which will have a bus station as well as a train station, 2 restaurant pads, so people can get off the train, get right on the bus, and go to their destination. If we can get people up out of their cars, 70% of the traffic you see at exit 1 and 2 at 4 o'clock on a Friday night are people commuting in and out of the city and out of White Plains. We can get them out of the cars and into a train. We can reduce a lot of that congestion, and then partner with the state to do their exit 1 through 11 widening that they've already begun the process of planning.
Can I ask a quick question
Sure.
for you? Okay. United Way has its Alice report in which they have said that about half of the city struggles to meet its basic needs. What are your visions to help that population of the city?
But for me,
I don't.
the Alice,
First.
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. The Alice report. Yeah, I'm aware, and I've seen it. Says that 50% of people in the city of Danbury are at risk, or either at risk of being in poverty. And so the issue becomes, what is it that we can do to try to help this population? And I think several things. One of them is that we have to have opportunity, right? Educational opportunity and economic opportunity. As far as educational opportunity goes, I've said during the campaign that I think it's important that our high schools and colleges, universities work together to try to provide training, right, educational opportunity for people so that we're training them to have the skills that our local businesses need so that they can get good paying jobs, right? So I think that that's one way that we can try to help people. Another way is economic opportunity. And one of the ways to do that, right, is to sort of follow the outline that I've laid out in this campaign. I believe that if we have better schools, better roads, and a better downtown, right, revitalized downtown, roads that are paved with a plan for traffic congestion, and that we have schools that are viewed as being at least capable of fitting all of our students, right? Notwithstanding the fact that we're last in per pupil expenditure, I think if we do those 3 things, that is going to bring more good paying jobs to the city of Danbury. I mean, that's what we're really looking for, right? Jobs for people so that they can help to get themselves out of their situation. And I think that it's going to come down to opportunity, right? Those are things that matter. And so these are quality of life issues for the city of Danbury. And I think in the end, they're going to translate to helping people. But it's not any one thing. There's no silver bullet for this. But I think that report is an eye-opener, right? Because we've got half of the people that have done better. And the mayor talks about how Danbury is the shining city. And I don't doubt this is the best place to live. I grew up here, and I don't disagree that Danbury is the best place. But I think it's because of its people. And I think in the end, not its government, and I think in the end that when we talk about Danbury, that there is a part of our city where people are struggling every day. They work 2 jobs. Healthcare is an issue, and so is their rent. And so, they need a mayor too. And I want to represent everyone. I've said that from the beginning. An inclusive way, a new vision and view, and a new way forward. And so these proposals that I'm talking about, whether it's educational opportunity, economic opportunity, has one eye towards all of our people, right? All the people in Danbury. And so I think it's important. And so, I do believe those are a few of the ways that we can help people. We can help people who otherwise would have a difficult time. And they're looking for options.
You guys are gonna have to excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm being
No problem.
buzzed, I have a meeting, but it's been great, listening to this discussion, and I'm sure you wanna respond to that last part.
Yeah, I'll be
First,
real.
but I hope you guys are gonna get to revitalization of the downtown, which just came up, because, it is like there are at least 2 different cities here, and what I've witnessed going on downtown since the 1960s, and today, it's very different, and I'm just curious as to how you make Danbury a destination, down there. Should be interesting.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you. Yeah, good to talk.
Is that okay?
Okay. So, I read the Alice report, I'm familiar with some of the stats that are in there. And there's a couple things that jump out at you, right? 50% of our families are living below the poverty line. That means they're really sensitive to any movement in their taxes, any movement in their fixed costs, whether it be through a rent that gets increased by a landlord, or whether it be the mortgage that they may be just struggling to make each and every month. So we have to be really careful about increasing taxes by creating new programs, putting more pressure on them, because we don't want to drive people out of their homes. This is that push and pull and balance that you have to strike in terms of being a leader within the community. But there's also a discussion about maximum opportunity. One of the best programs I've seen in the city of Danbury is the outgo program at Danbury High School, where students go to Naugatuck Valley Community College and at the same time get a high school diploma. The first cohort of students have graduated through there. So they got a 2-year associate's degree along with a high school diploma. This was implemented 2 years ago. I greet the program participants every year. They now have an associate's degree that they can market and go out to the world of work, or they can potentially go to Westcon or university somewhere in the world and finish out with a bachelor's degree. Because we know that the stats show us that the higher level of education you have, the more your earning power is, right? So the more education that we can get to somebody, the better off that we all are. I think Naugatuck Community College has become a great example of an institution which has tripled its enrollment, that provides low-cost educational opportunities for people who aren't making a lot of money to be able to pull themselves out of where they are. And so anything we can do to partner with them and to keep them and help them expand is a good thing, and something that I'm excited to do. It was under my administration, and I met with Daisy multiple times to get her to locate in the Pershing building in the corner of West and Main, and it's been a home run for the city. Students are walking back and forth with backpacks, Barristers is open, shops are being taken below. It's been a really good thing. And then the other thing we need to do is listen to our employers. I tour factories and shops pretty much every month. Every Wednesday we go out and visit new business. And in those trips, I hear that the graduates, whether it be high school graduates or even college graduates, are not ready to work. So we got to make sure that they have work skills, like get on time, call in sick if you're not going to be there, stay till 5 o'clock, don't leave at quarter, all of those kinds of things, but also don't have the skills that they want. There are many companies in Danbury where you can earn a very good living and do on-the-job training. You don't need a preset skill. Belimo Air is hiring right now. There's a big billboard on Mill Plain Road. One of the factories that's opened on the west side, by the way, brand new facility, state-of-the-art, beautiful. They're hiring first and second shift with benefits and high hourly wage. Boughton for decades has been looking for machinists that are able to operate the new CAD systems that use computers. There's a number of businesses out in Commerce Park, like Gar Electroplating, that do helicopter blades for the Cobra helicopters. They're consistently and constantly looking for people that are able to be trained and learn the craft and be able to work. And so it's about matching up those graduates with those particular with those employers who need certain job skills to be able to do that. I believe the public school system has a responsibility to make young people ready to work, right? That's important. And Abitech has become a huge player in this as well. Abitech now is routinely oversubscribed. They have a waiting list of about 200 or 300 students every year. We ought to try to get more seats, have the legislators fight to get more seats for that facility, whether we use the building at night, we use it in the summer, because they're putting kids out that are ready to work and enter the workforce with skills that employers need. So by doing all these things, I think we can help pull people out of there. But certainly, at the end of the day, this is really a discussion about, do we have the companies that provide the opportunity? The answer is yes. Do we continue to recruit companies to come into Danbury that are able to provide opportunity? The answer is yes to that. And we also look to our small and medium-sized businesses. They're the largest employer in the city, and we want to help them navigate their way through state and era, and businesses are leaving Connecticut every other day, navigate their way through all the state paperwork that gets thrown at them, and taxes that they have to pay. And help them grow their business. And sometimes it's just coaching or mentoring. And then finally, we opened up the Innovation Center right on Main Street under my administration. Spent $500,000 renovating the front part of the library. And that's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week business incubator where young people go in there, come up with an idea for a business. Maybe they do coding. One business that started out of there makes chocolates out of lasers. Another one makes toys out of recycled material. Those are real bona fide businesses that have started there with just a little seeding from the city of Danbury to put people to work and pull them out of their situation. We also utilize a SCORE program, which are retirees that are there, business retirees that are able to provide mentoring and coaching for those kids and young people and people of all ages really, and how to do a business plan and how to set that up and how do you set up an LLC and a corporation so that they can get rolling on whatever the business might be. Those have all been real successes, but there's always more to do. And so we'll continue to do that and work on that in the years to come.
Can I just make one point? I'll make it brief. the mayor, one thing that he said was that we need to be sensitive to people's ability to pay into the taxes. And so, our taxes in Danbury have increased 25% over the last 10 years. And so in some cases, since the Boughton administration came into being, they've doubled. And so I think that is an issue that we need to be sensitive to because we've seen taxes increase here significantly over the time that Mark has been the mayor. Secondly, the mayor is saying that our plan for our city that we put forward in terms of the crowding in the schools and our roads and our downtown is going to increase people's taxes $1,800 a person. And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely not the case. That we have not put forward any proposal that's going to result in a tax increase. Budgeting municipally has to do with setting priorities. And so, let's let our proposals speak for themselves. And so I can tell you that our proposals have to do with bonding that's already being done, have to do short-term bonding, long-term bonding, and have to do with actually, in the case of downtown revitalization, the will of a mayor who's willing to go to investors to actually make it happen downtown, because it hasn't in the last 18 years. And so, I just want to be clear about that it's not our intention and it's absolutely not going to happen. We are not raising taxes $1,800 a year. And it's my intention, based on my past conduct as a member and president of the city council, to hold the line on taxes, because we tried to keep our spending below the rate of inflation and keep taxes low because we knew how important it was, and that's exactly the kind of mayor I'm going to be.
We have gone a bit over, but if you don't mind, if we could just talk
Yeah.
about downtown revitalization briefly. Talk all day about it, but.
I'll stay as long as you have questions.
Oh, it could be a long time then. Chris, give us more details then about your downtown revitalization.
So here's what I believe will help us significantly downtown. Okay, I think that we need to make downtown a dining and entertainment district, have a dining and entertainment district downtown again. There was a time when we had that, such as it was, right? And so it might not have been for a prolonged period of time, but there was a time when there were restaurants and there was nightlife downtown. And so now we've gotten away from that. The last 18 years, we've seen that dissipate completely, to the point where, at one point, there was zoning that was prohibiting further restaurants downtown. And so what I think we need to do is to have a dining and entertainment district downtown, and the way to do that is to have a mayor who's focused on this. There's opportunity zone opportunities here for people that have money to invest, whether it's restaurateurs, entrepreneurs, or other investors in our downtown. And it's a matter of having the will and the ability to go and make that happen. This is what I do for a living. I advocate, I negotiate, I mediate, and that's the kind of mayor I'm going to be. I want to be the chief economic development officer for the city of Danbury, to talk to people with money to invest and to create the will, which is doable, right? Which is doable, to explain to them why Danbury is a good place to invest your money, downtown Danbury. That's exactly what I can do, and I will do that. Even if we had 2 restaurants like there are in Mill Plain, for whatever the reason, the dining and entertainment district for the city of Danbury is all on the west side. And so, okay, such as it is. But, in the end, we can't let our downtown die. And so I think that I've heard from voter after voter, especially young people, why they believe we ought to have better opportunities downtown for dining and entertainment. That's exactly what I think we ought to do. And so I would go and talk to the people who have money to invest about bringing nightlife and restaurants downtown. The city owns the Tuxedo Junction building. Those of us of a certain vintage remember when there was live music there. And so, why wouldn't we want to lease that to a promoter so that we could have live music downtown? I mean, it's a start. And so I think that's important. Dining and entertainment is one way to jumpstart downtown revitalization. I also think, I've talked about public safety and that it's important to fill the table of organization at the police department from 132 to 154 officers, 22 officers down. And I think that with those additional officers, they would be that, like we used to have, an effective community policing program with cops on the beat, cops on bikes, that would provide the kind of, downtown security that we all feel is important. And I think the small business owners feel that way, merchants, all thought that was a positive development when we had a more robust community policing program. And so these are some of the ways that I think that we can move the needle downtown. We can make a difference.
So specific question with that. I remember not too long ago, Tom Devine from Two Steps
Yeah.
wanted to bring sports betting into his restaurant as a way to revitalize it. People
Yeah.
come downtown at all. Did you support that?
I like Tom, but personally, it's not something that I personally would have supported. I mean, I understand that gaming is I guess, one avenue for, increased opportunities for tax revenue and the like. I just, personally, I just don't think it's right for Danbury.
And Mark, your idea for revitalizing downtown?
Sure, we've been working hard on downtown for most of my time in office. We have experienced 2 recessions, one the Great Recession that put a stop to really all development investment for at least 3 or 4 years, particularly in Connecticut, but we've had successes. We have a market rate housing development across the street from here that the Democrats, when Chris was on the council, tried to put up for probably 20 years, even going back prior to him to the Jimmy Dyer era. Nobody could ever convince anybody to build market rate housing, yet we have it here, not just here, but also on Crosby Street. The problem that we need for downtown is we need people. We need people with discretionary, disposable income that can go and support a dining entertainment district. The reason why it's moved out to the west side is because that's where the people are. They have money to spend. When they have money to spend, they can go there, they don't have to pay for parking, they can pull right in, they can go to Molly Darcy's, they can go to Marketplace, they can go to Dolce, wherever. That's what draws and drives the marketplace in terms of these kinds of things. So the first step would be to get people down here, and that's what we've been working on, right? So we have Kennedy Flats across the street. We have your old building, which is going to be turned into more market rate housing to be able to put people here. And then we have to say to people, well, we don't want you necessarily driving everywhere. We had to create something called a transit-oriented development plan. We want people to live where the transportation center is, because they're going to require restaurants, and they're going to require clubs, and they're going to require all kinds of activities. Sharon Calitro, our planner, she actually sits on the governor's task force for TOD planning. So we went to the state and they funded with $400,000 a new TOD plan, and we're in the process of executing that. Part of that is driving that train from Danbury out to the Maybrook line to Southeast and into New York City. I went down to Lower Manhattan, met with the MT Metro North, convinced them to give us $800,000. They said, fine, go do it. We think there may be some value to doing this. So if we can build a multimodal center, if we can have our buses, our trains, Uber, everything all located in one spot, and then utilize the existing restaurant pads and the ones that we want to build, we'll have something to market out there that people will say, I want to do that. And by the way, the TOD study then brought in another $2 million from the state to redo all the sidewalks. Granite sidewalks, granite curbing with concrete sidewalks. This year, through a federal grant, we have implemented roving foot patrols for safety and security. The issue is not that we don't have enough manpower. We have what's called a minimum manpower clause in our contract. So anything you want to do above and beyond the minimum manpower, whether you have 130 officers or 150 officers, doesn't matter, because it's going to cost you money. And to put people out on the street in terms of the scope that he's been talking about will cost the city millions. You have to go above the 155 to 170 in terms of physical officers. That's 15 new officers. You can add up what that would cost to do that. We also have reduced parking and permitting fees all around throughout the city. We've got again, I mentioned market rate housing that's going on. And we've got an exciting proposal to be able to acquire the Congregational Church across from Deer Hill. What's exciting about that is it's got one of the best sanctuaries in terms of acoustics there are in the state of Connecticut. We've got a benefactor that's willing to outfit the church and make that what we call the meeting house. The meeting house is seating for 800 people. We'll host musical performances, comics, playwrights, poets, whatever. And people will be able to park in the adjacent parking lot around that, and we'll be able to acquire that for $1. And we'll have all the upgrades done that'll purchase that. So that'll provide us opportunity. But we have had some success. As I mentioned before, Naugatuck Valley Community College has created a learning corridor with WestCon. We've got Mothership down the street, which has become very successful. We also have Barristers, which is very busy in the morning. We have opportunity zones, and there is a lot of interest. And yes, we negotiate with those people all the time to the extent we can, but they're private real estate deals. We don't interject ourselves in the middle except to say, we have the following things available to you. We have a facade replacement program that you can take advantage of, a low interest loan from the city. We've got expedited permitting. We've got lower taxes. We've got all these things that can happen for you to be able to put your development down here. But in the end, it's gonna take people that are gonna be able to go to these places and then have discretionary disposable income to support them.
Okay, yes.
I just want to say a couple things. I mean, you know, back, I mean, the mayor likes to reference when I was on the council. When I was on the council, downtown was, what was featured downtown was the Ericetti slab. So let's just, you know, if we're going to go back to the 1990s, in the 1990s, what was left for the Iroquois administration was a mess. It was a mess based on a failed developer's attempt to revitalize downtown, and the people that paid the price were the people of the city of Danbury. And so, you know, that was the heavy lift, right? I mean, that Ericetti slab is what faced all of us who were elected officials in the 90s. And so to get to where we are today, or where we were even in 2001, was a big deal, okay? As far as the TOD planning, I don't doubt that that study is a guide for us. The point is that it's 18 years later, and it's going to take years to implement it. And so what I'm talking about is enticing private investment downtown. I understand, you know, the mayor wants to wait for people who have the money to invest to come to City Hall. What I'm saying is we're going to have to go and recruit them. We're going to have to talk to them. We need a more proactive approach to these things, whether it's the schools, the roads, the downtown. We need to have outcomes be our guide. You know, I bring an 80-hour-a-week small business person's approach to problem solving. And so what does that mean? It means that, you know, it's the sweat equity that makes the difference. And any small business person knows what I'm talking about. And that's how we get good outcomes. You work until you get an answer, right? You don't just say, I put my time in 4 days a week and that's it. You've got to work hard to make it happen. And that's exactly the approach I would bring. I don't want to be the longest serving mayor. I want to be the most effective. So I think it's important. And so when we talk about police costing the city millions, you know what costs the city millions? Overtime. Overtime. If we don't fund the table of organization like I'm saying, instead the alternative is the overtime that's paid to the police. And it's been noted in the media year over year that there's 132 officers. So either, you know, we're unable or unwilling to move the needle on that. But what I'm saying is that, you know, I think there's a multifaceted purpose. One of them is that we can have officers downtown where we need them. And we also are going to have less overtime paid. So, you know, those are just a few points that I want to make. You know, and on the Congregational Church, you know, the city of Danbury, the taxpayers here are going to pay $100,000 a year to maintain that. And I'm not saying that I think that preserving one of the most historically significant buildings in the city is a bad idea. I just think that we could have gone about that in a different way. I think that there are other avenues available to fund the maintenance of that building because of its historical significance. And so rather than make the people of the city of Danbury be the prime payers for the maintenance of that facility, I would have looked for other grant opportunities and other funding sources for a building of that historical significance. I understand why we want to preserve it. I'm just not sure, you know, like the casino scare, I saw that there was a condo scare. If we didn't preserve the Congregational Church, condos would go there. I mean, you know, we've seen these scares, Tony Singes, layoffs, West Side Casino, the Congregational Church, you know, you see a pattern, right? And so I'm not sure condos were going to go in that place, but I think that, you know, using historical grant money would have been a better way to fund it.
I just want to say that we have a benefactor that's willing to fund a lot of these capital improvements to the project. I've already negotiated, met with them at that person's house, and they've agreed to do all this, and we'll be announcing that shortly. I think Chris is right. The Ericetti slab was an abject failure. It was a disaster. The problem was we went out and tried to build an ice arena there, and we stuck my administration with $2 million worth of bills that I had to bail out the mess that was created when everybody left the city council. The measurement is right across the street. We've got a 98% filled apartment complex of people, including myself, that live there, that love living downtown and want to see more good things happen. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. And let me be very clear, I don't work 4 days a week. I work 7 days a week. I work 80 hours a week every weekend for 18 years. I have never missed a single city council meeting. Through family crisis, through deaths in my family, through a brain tumor, I've never missed a single city council meeting. Over 240 meetings. And I'm proud of that because I've been there for the residents of the city of Danbury.
It is 120.
Okay.
It is 120.
Quick question and then a second quick question and then we'll wrap it up. So Chris, would you reopen City Hall 5 days a week?
You know, on its face, it's a good idea, right? Because I'm sensitive to people that live in Danbury, that people that don't, right? That want access to services. So on its face, it seems like, yeah, that would be a good idea. But what happened was that they negotiated into the collective bargaining agreements a 4-day work week. So now, I mean, it's not that simple, is it? Now we have to go back and we would have to renegotiate this and all the collective bargaining agreements. So as a matter of principle, yes, I think that what is this? I mean, this is the 7th largest city in the state. We've got a city hall that's open 4 days a week. I understand the extended hours, then, let's stay open late one night during the week or something. But, to say that we're gonna be open 4 days a week just seems outrageous in a city this size, with the needs that we have. We're supposed to serve the people, not the other way around. So I think that, in my view, I know it was a big, energy savings that we realized, right? For 18 years, I mean, come on. At some point, consequences matter. The results speak for themselves, right? And so I think that people expect their city hall to be open 5 days a week.
I would just say, we didn't implement the 4-day work week 18 years ago. That's just not true. And we save about $150,000 a year operating City Hall on a 4-day work week. We are open more hours now than we ever can. And the other thing that we've done is partnered with local businesses to have them perform a lot of the city services. So that's allowed us to lower our head count, but it's provided access for residents of Danbury 6 days a week. So you can pay your taxes at Savings Bank of Danbury, the Union Savings Bank, on Friday and Saturday. You can now get your permit online. You don't have to go to City Hall. You can sit right at your computer and print it out and pay your fee, and away you go with your construction. And also, our building department operates on a 5-day work week. They're out there doing inspections so that you'll be able to get your inspection. So this wasn't done for the employees. It was done right after the crash of 08, when we needed to figure out a way to save money without whacking the taxpayers with a big tax increase or cutting services to a rate that just wouldn't be responsible.
Last question is a personal one. I know that you two have been friends. And in fact, Chris, didn't you offer space for Mark's campaign for governor a while back? And
We did
so-
pay for it, though. Chris accepted the money, so it's fair to say.
Okay, well, so you were friends, and I wondered through this campaign, it's been a very vigorous one, are you still friends?
Look, yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, there's things that are much bigger than, if anything I learned during, when I was really sick and frankly was given a death sentence by the doctors, was there are more important things in life than, who sits in the corner office or politics, right? At the end of the day, it's your neighbors, it's your people around you that care for you and love you. And at the end of the day, I just feel that I'm a different person since I went through that experience. And of course, Chris has every right to run. He has a vision, an idea, and thoughts of what he wants to do. I get it, and but so do I. So we'll let the voters decide.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I wish the mayor well. As far as space in our building, yeah, I mean, when he asked about space, and, we were the newest building that opened, and we were glad to do it, right? We, I bought that building and renovated it, and I'm proud of it, and, it was a lot of work, and, we're one city, and here we are. But, I think we both have a vision and we both have a view, and in the end, it'll be up to the voters.
Thank you very much.
What about a question?
What's
You
that?
said we could ask a question.
Okay, would you like to ask a question of each other? Me?
I
I have one.
Okay.
Okay. We spent time doing all this work.
I want to get a question in, okay.
So, Chris kind of referenced this earlier, and it's probably why the only reason I'm bringing it up. He talked about taxes. He talked about, how Danbury's raised taxes 25%, however many years he wants to say. And I would argue that stable taxes have been a hallmark of Danbury, right? It's an important thing for us to do when you compare us to other communities, or particularly cities. Our tax rate is half of what they are. So, in a lot of this literature, he talks about 25% over however many years it is. So I decided to do a little checking. I wanted to see, and I actually looked at a house on Lewis Allen Drive, and it's your house, Chris. In 2011, you paid $15,382 in taxes. In 2019, this year, you paid $14,328. So you actually got a tax cut over the last $1,000 over the last 8 years. So I don't think you can make a broad generalized statement and say you raised taxes by 25%, because that's just not true.
What I did say, and this is a meaningful discussion. I mean, I didn't talk about my taxes. I said for some people, because I've seen the
You
tax
said
bills.
everybody did at first.
No,
Go ahead. I wrote it down.
No,
It says-
double, no, I did say 25%. What I said was that for some people, their taxes have doubled since the Boughton administration took office. And that is the case, and I've seen the tax bills, and that is the case. So I'm not talking about my personal property taxes, or my real property taxes. I'm talking about for people in the city of Danbury, the mill rate, and I have, as a matter of fact, I just so happen to have the statistics, and it shows that the mill rate between 2009 and 2018 has increased, and this comes from the state. So this is where I've gotten that information about the increase in taxes, the increase in the mill rate. The mill rate has gone up 25%, and I have it. As far as when I say that people's taxes, for some people, not everyone, for some people, and they know who they are, right? Their taxes have doubled since the Boughton administration took office. And I have those tax bills.
Okay. Thank you both for your time. We did go over almost a half an hour, sorry, usually.
Thank you.
There's a lot to talk about here.
Thank you.
2 more weeks, right?
That's it.
There.
See you next year. Thanks, Jen.